I'd like to delve into the compassion of allowing open borders, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. Is it truly compassionate to allow illegal border crossers to basically come across anytime, anywhere, and potentially undermine the sovereignty of any country, any nation? Does it make sense at any level to allow this kind of activity? Let's talk about it. Thank you for joining me, Kevin McGarry, your masterclass prognosticator and professor at Woked Up University. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for joining me. And we're going to get into today the compassion of open borders. Let's take a look at it from many different angles. First, I want to start with a scenario, and then you tell me if it makes sense. So first, let's assume you bought a beautiful house, and you're at a point where you actually want to put in now a swimming pool. You put in the swimming pool, or you go to pool permits to put in your swimming pool in your beautiful house, in your backyard. And you go down to the planning commission, whatever you have in your city. And they say, yeah, look, the plans look great. This is fine. But for all new swimming pools, you must put in a security barrier. And you say, oh, yeah, no problem. We'll put in the security barrier. We'll have the pool. No problem. So you go ahead and you build the pool. You design it, build it, and according to spec. And for starters, you put in the security barrier. That was helpful because your neighbor, who happens to have 2 little children, always asks you, can they come over to swim? And you let them periodically when you're around and you're available. On one weekend, however, you leave your home and you leave your swimming pool unprotected without the barrier up. Your neighbor knows that you're out going to your weekend vacation spot. And so your neighbor actually goes through your fence, brings his 2 little toddlers with him, and they start to participate in pool activities in your unsecured pool. You come home and you find that there's a lot of police and firefighters around. You ask them what's going on. And they say, oh, your neighbor and his children have died. Oh, really? What happened? They were in your pool and they drowned. Guess who's going to jail? You know why you're going to jail? Because you did not properly secure your swimming pool, and it was an inducement to your neighbors to go and partake in your pool. This is what we have on any sovereign borders in the world. We have people who think that it's compassionate and humane to allow people from anywhere and everywhere to come through their borders. But when you look at it, is it actually compassionate to allow people to come and take their life in their own hands? This is what we're dealing with, especially on the U.S. southern border. On the U.S. southern border, there were some statistics years ago, and they've been squashed ever since. So there were some statistics that pointed out 70 to 80% of all females, that would be toddlers, young girls, and full-grown adult women, were accosted, assaulted, or outright raped in some way, making the trek to come to America for a better life. Now, that's just one aspect. The other aspect is there's a lot of people that make that trek. It's deadly. It's very hot and humid. A lot of people get packed into trucks and they die along the way. So is it actually compassionate to have open borders, allow people to take that? Certainly they're looking for a better life, but allow them to take their life and the life of their children in their own hands to the extent that they risk life, limb the integrity of their own bodies along the way. Is that compassionate? Here's the thing. If all sovereign nations had borders, which most do, they would be able to make sure that the people that are coming through are protected properly, have their proper papers, and they would allow them the opportunity to join if indeed they had a good excuse for seeking asylum. So this is the measured, much more humane way to do it. Here's the other thing that we are enduring right now. We have human and sex trafficking that is through the roof. These gangs on the borders are actually manipulating and taking full advantage of these poor people who are just seeking a better life. But they're having to pay these cartels. And these cartels, it's been estimated, they're making about $1 billion a month on our unsecured borders. So it doesn't make sense then. And is it compassionate and humane for us as a sovereign nation to allow manipulation and to allow coyotes, what they call coyotes, or human traffickers, sex traffickers, fentanyl traffickers, weapons traffickers, to use our sovereign borders as a way to maximize their profits? That's what's been happening. As a matter of fact, several people have noted that Biden is the best human smuggler in American history. And if you look at the statistics, with approximately 5 million people coming through our border over the past 18 months, those are the ones that can be accounted for. Doesn't account for the getaways. You'd have to agree that indeed Mr. Biden is precipitating human smuggling activities, drug overdose activities, sex trafficking activities. Here's the other thing. I've actually given in the past to sex traffic organizations who make sure that they prevent sex trafficking, domestic violence, and those types of things. Those organizations were actually quite vocal right before President Trump provided them with a lot of additional funding for their protecting of women and children who were purposely being trafficked into the United States. And then after President Trump gave them the monies, they still were quite reticent to give any accolades. But those monies for these organizations who are trying to protect sex traffic victims, human traffic victims, they've been quite silent. While a lot of the funding that they were getting under the prior administration is not there anymore. This leads me to, are these organizations sincere? Are they serious about their work? How come they're not howling and having a desk pounding session at the White House because of the number of sex trafficked and domestic violenced people that are coming over the border who don't have much understanding of our the types of ways that we can help, but at least seek help within their purview. But they're underfunded right now, and yet nothing, silence. Why is that? Why haven't they said anything about the horrible rapes that these young women and children have to endure as their price to pay to get here to America? That's peculiar, because I thought these organizations were absolutely sincere, non-politically ideological, sincere about the work. But if they were sincere, wouldn't they actually have some choice words for the current administration? Silent. What happens to the do-gooder clergies that say, no, we should open our borders for everyone and anyone because it's the most humane way that we should treat these people. These people are looking for a better life. Really? While they're being sex trafficked? While they're being accosted? While they're being sexually abused? while they're being raped multiple times along the trek. And you people of faith say, oh, this is the most humane. It is? While they're taking their own life and the life of their children in their own hands just to get here? Actually, if you were to think logically and not ideologically, you will find that the most humane way to deal with people in these circumstances is to actually put up a barrier. Remember that first scenario I gave you about if you were a homeowner and you had a pool? If you actually had a barrier, you de-incentivize people putting their life and limb and their bodies at risk just to get here. The most compassionate, the most humane, the best way to deal with making sure that people don't lose their dignity before they get to America is to have barriers, is to have fences. This way, there's a logical, consistent way to make sure that we welcome all of those who are looking for a better life. We can then have advocacy agencies there ready for them, ready to help them as they come to the United States seeking asylum. So here's the deal. I know there's a lot of guilty, do-gooder, guilty, leftist, progressive types, but you need to check yourself. You need to check the statistics. You need to check the fact that thousands upon thousands are being killed just to get here, and you have the audacity to assert that open borders is the most humane? While drug cartels are making record profits, the most in history for cartels. They're making record profits right now. Really? We Americans need to be compassionate, sensitive, wise, and prudent. And that means we need to think this thing through. That means we don't make excuses for an ideological political point. That means that we're sincere about humanity and we actually embrace humanity to the extent we want to protect humanity. In that earlier situation I gave you, here's the thing. You would be going to jail. You would have blood on your hands and you don't even have an excuse. It's irrefutable. In the same way, the United States has blood on her hands for all of the thousands that we've encouraged to come here, risking life, limb, and everything. And all of those many thousands that have died along the way or have been mercilessly raped along the way and are now being in a continuum of sex trafficking, that's blood on our hands, folks. So let's be clear-minded. Let's be non-ideological. Let's be compassionate and as humanly sensitive as possible to all of these people who are indeed just seeking a better life. A better life for them would be to go through the proper channels, not risk their life, their kids, their children's lives, but go through the channels. We are a welcoming society. We do have great immigration policies and we need to improve them. We need to be better at that. But open borders is not the answer. It's not compassionate. It is not humane. It's the worst human rights atrocity in American history. If you look at it from the perspective of sex trafficking and abuse and fentanyl deaths and all those things calculated and considered. So I hope this gives you some perspective. I hope this helps you, men and women of faith, to really understand the issues as opposed to being smitten by progressive political ideology. This is beyond that. Okay? Thank you for joining Woked Up University. That's our lesson for the day. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. God bless you.